Welcome to today's program, where we will analyze what the Democratic Party would have to do in case Trump wins the upcoming election. Certainly, Trump and Putin will not be let off easy. Last time, the left took advantage of the COVID pandemic. So what will they have to use this time to end the nightmare the MAGA movement brings? Coming up are the details. Overall, there were no major developments on the front lines in the past 24 hours, except that last night, Russia continued missile strikes on Kharkiv and Odessa. Specifically in Kharkiv, the target was a hospital that seemed to be treating foreign nationals. Initially, the Kharkiv Regional Emergency Service said the medical center was non-operational, but later the Ukrainian Health Ministry reported 17 injured. The Russian Defense Ministry also confirmed on January 16 that they carried out a precision strike on a temporary deployment point in Kharkiv, where foreign mercenaries, mainly French, were stationed. The building where the mercenaries were taking shelter was also destroyed. More than 60 militants were killed, and over 20 wounded were taken to medical facilities. In the early morning, Russia also attacked the Odessa area with Onyx missiles, targeting businesses and agricultural production zones. The fact that Russia has repeatedly struck deep behind Kharkiv lines to destroy foreign mercenary deployments over the past 2 weeks is a worrying signal for Ukraine. It is highly likely that Russia is leaving room for a ground offensive in the region. At this point, Ukraine has retreated to a defensive posture near Avdiivka. Russia continues to attack from both flanks, and footage shows Russia has captured positions near Pervomayski, 10 km southwest of Avdiivka. With artillery and UAV support, a Russian assault group destroyed hardened Ukrainian force shelters. However, Russia's offensive also faced difficulties, especially in the Pobeda-Novomikhilovka area due to drone activity and the enemy's sturdy fortifications. Since September 2023, President Putin and Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu have repeatedly commented that Russia's military operation in Ukraine can be described as proactive defense. The U.S. Department of Defense defines proactive defense as the limited offensive and flexible counterattacks to prevent the enemy from gaining a foothold in the defender's area of operations. Thwarting the tip of the enemy spearhead and holding ground is part of proactive defense. Russia has adeptly applied this all along the front. It also undertakes small-scale attacks to gain tactically advantageous positions. However, most of the time, the defense focuses on eliminating any possibility of a local enemy offensive. Thanks to its network of sturdy fortifications, Russia has destroyed large numbers of Ukrainian troops time and again. On January 4, the Atlantic Council called for Ukraine's military to copy Russia's successful deployment, stating, "To defeat Putin in a protracted conflict, Ukraine must switch to proactive defense in 2024. It wrote, "Ukraine's 2024 military strategy should focus on holding the line and maintaining control of some 82% of the country's sovereign territory. Transitioning to proactive defense would leverage Ukraine's current strengths while giving it precious time to regroup and rearm under what could be more favorable conditions in 2025. Critically, a defensive posture would foil Moscow's desire for a lightning victory." With the Russian military under intense political pressure at home to attack, Ukrainian commanders would have ample opportunity to steadily attrit Putin's forces, much as they are currently doing around Avdiivka. Just over a week later, Ukraine's ground forces Commander General Alexander Syrsky stated his troops are now in a proactive defense posture. However, with sufficient ammunition, Russia can take even more advantage of Ukraine's new defensive layout with small-scale attacks along the line of contact. Russia understands full well that NATO surveillance, drones, and satellite reconnaissance make large troop concentrations almost impossible. With advantages in ammunition and manpower, Russia will prevail, albeit slowly, until most of the Ukrainian defensive line collapses under sustained Russian assault. At this point, the front lines are relatively quiet compared to the diplomatic and political sphere, with the spotlight on events surrounding the Davos Economic Forum. Despite the West's continued vows to stand with Zelensky at Davos, yesterday saw two seemingly disadvantageous developments for Ukraine. First, new House Speaker Kevin McCarthy reiterated to President Biden that he remains firmly committed to U.S. border security as the first priority. Not only that, he stated Ukraine is not going to be the next Afghanistan, but before we start talking about Ukraine, Americans need to take care of their own issues first. The second event was China's rejection of Ukraine's request for a meeting between Chinese Premier Li Keqiang and President Zelensky at Davos. Politico wrote yesterday, Ukrainian leaders made no secret about wanting to meet with Chinese officials in Switzerland this week, but Zelensky has gone home without the hoped-for meeting, a sharp blow to Kyiv. Clearly, Zelensky was not pleased to see China ignore Western sanctions to massively import discounted Russian energy, then resell it at exorbitant prices to the EU itself. The two events signal looming headwinds for Ukraine and tailwinds Russia stands to benefit from. Notably, former President Trump has praised his relationship with Putin as harmonious and insists that if re-elected, he would promptly end the Ukraine war. Understandably, this declaration did not sit well with Zelensky. Initially, Zelensky downplayed concerns over Trump's statements and confidently asserted U.S. support for Ukraine would be unaffected even if Trump gets re-elected. He said, "One person cannot change an entire nation." However, he later admitted that a Trump victory in 2024 could impact military operations or negotiations, citing the Republican Party's position as causing anxiety and pain to Ukrainians. The New York Times also wrote that Zelensky is not the only leader in Davos worried about Mr. Trump. Numerous attendees have said the election outcome represents a lurking risk to their businesses, especially after the former president trounced Republican rivals in a closed-door Iowa meeting. It confirmed the presence of moguls like Blackstone's Steve Schwarzman, Bridgewater's Ray Dalio, Carlyle Group's David Rubenstein, and Dell CEO Michael Dell at the Davos conference. So the liberal elites worry about a Trump win. Will his White House comeback go smoothly, or will he face obstacles? A specter of fear looms over leftist elites, not just because Trump has vowed to drain the swamp in Washington, but more so because he wants to dismantle NATO, befriend Russia, to contain China while corporate titans reap tremendous profits from dealings with Beijing. That's why there are plans to block Trump's path back to the Oval Office, similar to what transpired in 2020. Over the past few days, world media has been abuzz over leaked information published by German tabloid Bild on January 14th, citing confidential documents that Germany is preparing for a war with Russia. The plans were laid out in meticulous month-by-month detail by the German Ministry of Defense, beginning in February 2024 and lasting until May 2025. According to them, Russia could destabilize the Baltic states, starting by igniting tensions in the Suwalki corridor, thus triggering a major NATO security crisis. The map briefly analyzed each step of the leaked plans. At first glance, this plan seems illogical, since hasn't the West been constantly propagating that Russia is losing, that its military has weakened, that it has lost 250,000 troops since the conflict began? In December, Reuters reported Russia had lost 315,000 troops. And most recently, Business Insider even predicted Russia would suffer 500,000 casualties by the end of 2024. So how could an army that has sustained such high losses, even being completely destroyed, quickly recover to the point of inundating all of Europe like a tidal wave? Another noteworthy detail is that the leaked documents state the precise dates Russia will attack NATO. To what end? Of course, the article aims to sow panic among the public and create a sense of scientific calculation and accurate information from NATO intelligence experts. However, it is precisely because the details are described too perfectly, too flawlessly for a predictive document, that it clearly shows this is a psychological warfare plan to provoke Russia. That is why Russia quickly dismissed these documents, while Germany said they were merely training scenarios.so. What was the purpose of leaking these documents? In reality, for each development deliberately leaked in a calculated manner, it is actually the West's way of sending a message about what they intend to do. It is no coincidence that against the backdrop of tit-for-tat attacks by Russia and Ukraine on each other's territories in the early days of the new year, Estonian President Alar Karis announced Estonia would provide Ukraine with 1.2 billion euros in aid to arm Kyiv. At the same time, he urged European allies to lift restrictions on providing weaponry to Ukraine. This can be said to be an extremely provocative action by a NATO member towards Moscow, precisely when Ukraine is attacking targets deep inside Russian territory. Next is the incident involving the A-50 reconnaissance aircraft, which Ukraine leaked was shot down by the Patriot missile system, although the Russian Ministry of Defense has not confirmed the information to date. Clearly, NATO's war machine is instigating in the hope that Russia will retaliate and will continue to escalate until Russia is forced to issue a warning or direct retaliation. Of course, Western media would then harmoniously coordinate with each other, treating Russia's reaction as proof of hostility and the Kremlin preparing to launch a major military action to cause difficulties for President Joe Biden and his Democratic Party in the 2024 election year. The leaked report specifically describes how Russia will begin inciting ethnic Russians living in the Baltic states. Of course, we fully understand that if the Kremlin simply issues a warning for overseas ethnic Russians to be careful of Russophobic actions, it would immediately be distorted into a call to overthrow governments or foment an uprising. Next, the report hilariously predicts Russia will conduct deterrent military exercises in September 2024 in Belarus, and this will be a training exercise used as a launchpad to attack NATO, as Russia did in February 2022 in Ukraine. However, joint exercises with Belarus have always been Russia's annual activity with its ally, and now Germany is portraying it as dangerous, provocative actions. The next step outlined in Germany's scenario is that Russia will launch the attack from the Suwalki corridor in Kaliningrad. But that's not all. The crux of the entire German report is that Russia will take advantage of the chaos during the few weeks when President Joe Biden is defeated in the presidential election and America has no leader. Then Putin will start the attack on NATO territory. We can't help but notice how all these plans just happen to coincide with the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Popular host Tucker Carlson has also implied there will be major surprises in late 2024. According to Newsweek's quotes, Carlson warned that the 2024 election risks repeating 2020 with the Democratic Party instead of using the COVID pandemic to overturn the results, now provoking a lightning-fast war with Russia as a pretext to cancel the election. Biden would invoke the War Powers Act in the Constitution, which would allow the president full military authority to act as he pleases for at least 60 days if he deems the U.S. to be under threat. Importantly, Carlson's warning was announced last September, and nearly 4 months later, starting with Bild's leak, Western media outlets over the past week have reported in unison on the possibility of NATO going to war with Russia in late 2024 or early 2025. It seems Germany's leaked report is part of the plan to cancel U.S. elections, perhaps the final option if all other attempts to block Trump's path fail one way or another. Newsweek quoted Tucker Carlson as saying, "If your goal is to maintain power, once you start prosecuting your political opponents, you know you need to win, or they'll prosecute you back when you fail, so they can't lose. They will do anything to win." Additionally, presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, touted as the second Trump, publicly mentioned right after Trump's overwhelming Iowa victory that there is a force that will not allow Trump back in the White House again. Moreover, a number of statements by senior White House officials have voiced fears of Trump securing the Republican nomination to run for president in 2024, despite the series of indictments the former president is facing in court.
If you want to fight inflation, vote Trump. If you want to revive national pride in this country, vote Trump. If you want to revive our national identity in this country, vote Trump. If you want to make America great again, vote Trump. That's how we're going to win this in a landslide in November, like Reagan delivered in 1980.
Appearing on a BC's show, Vice President Kamala Harris said she was scared to death right after Trump scored a resounding primary victory over his Republican rivals in Iowa. She said, "I'm scared. You know, there's that old saying that there are only two ways to run, unopposed or scared." Yes, we all should be scared. Meanwhile, Biden reacted on Twitter. It looks like Donald Trump has just won Iowa. At this point, he is the odds-on favorite on the other side. But here's the deal. This election has always been about a choice between you and me taking on the extreme MAGA Republicans. That was yesterday, and that will be tomorrow too. Remember in his September 2022 speech in the ominous blood-red illuminated Independence Hall in Pennsylvania, Biden declared, "Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic." In a speech earlier this month, also in Pennsylvania, Biden made similar remarks. Clearly, Trump returning to the White House is a nightmare for the warmongers pushing conflict to usurp power and profit. If Biden is pushed to the brink and goes to war with Russia, what should Putin do to gain the greatest benefit for his country? Please leave your comments below this video. And with that, we conclude today's program. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye, and see you again in the next episodes.